So if you're thinking about moving to San Diego and you want to live somewhere that's not in that city life and not necessarily in those master plan communities, there's a few great communities that are that rural style living here in North County, San Diego. So that's what we're going to get into today. We're going to go through the 5 best rural communities here in the North County communities of San Diego, starting with the most expensive, going all the way to the most affordable. So let's get into it right now.
Hello, I'm Cassidy Lewis.
And I'm Chris Erickson.
And we love making these videos for you guys, but we also are real estate agents here in North County, San Diego. So if you're thinking about moving out this way, give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, and we will help you get out to San Diego. Let's get into those top 5 rural communities here in North County, San Diego.
So before we get into number 1, if you've researched San Diego at all, there's actually some rural spots kind of on the outskirts, like Valley Center, Ramona, and then kind of eastern Escondido. All those parts do have some rural communities as well. We're not going into those today. We're going into more of the communities that are pretty close to infrastructure, to life, maybe to the beaches, all that kind of stuff. So within all these communities, our local coastal communities have a few, but the number 1 on the list is going to be the most expensive rural community here in North County, San Diego, and it's Rancho Santa Fe. The median price point in there right now is about $7.5 million. So there's just some sprawling estates in there. It's a very exclusive community. And just to give you kind of the spread of pricing in Rancho Santa Fe, the cheapest property right now is sitting at about $3.5 million. We're sitting right now at the middle of April 2022. The most expensive property is $98 million. Now that is like 7 parcels. It's like a 15,000 square foot house. It's 77 acres. So that's definitely on the higher side, but as a whole, 3.5 is going to be kind of your starting point in there for, you know, single family homes. There's not, and all these communities are mostly detached homes, so that's what we're kind of covering. But there's some pros and cons living in Rancho Santa Fe. First off, pro being it is a beautiful community cruising through. There's like no main roads. It's all these side roads, a ton of beautiful trees. Even as you're cruising through the roads and stuff, you're not going to see much in terms of houses because a lot of them are set back from the roads. And location wise, you're only sitting like 15 minutes from the ocean. You could shoot down to like Solana Beach. Loma Santa Fe leads you right to like Fletcher Cove. So you could shoot down there pretty quick, or a little bit to the north, a little bit to the south to Del Mar. So if you did want that beach life too, live in Rancho Santa Fe, shoot down to the beach pretty quickly. There's also a ton of equestrian trails. So some of the properties out there are equestrian properties with like barns and, you know, big, what are they called? The
horse facilities.
Horse facilities, yeah.
Corrals.
Like corrals, all that kind of stuff. So they do have a lot of that out there as well. There's also a private country club if you're living in a place called the Covenant, which is like the central part of Rancho Santa Fe. They have a private country club golf course specifically for the residents there. You must be a resident, part of the HOA to become a member. And some of the cons about living in Rancho Santa Fe, it is obviously super expensive. It's one of the most expensive communities in all of, not just San Diego, all of California. So it is crazy expensive, but like I said, huge properties, or the opportunity for huge property. Not all of them are insanely huge. Some are like, you know, smaller, few acre lots. Some are expansive lots. There's also not a ton of infrastructure out there. There's like the small kind of town center of Rancho Santa Fe, has a few shops, has a few restaurants, all that kind of stuff, but it's pretty small. I mean, it's like a few blocks long. If you needed to shoot to the store or anything, you can shoot to Encinitas, down El Camino Real. You could shoot to like the Cedros district over in Solana Beach for, you know, furniture shopping and all that kind of stuff. So there are quick shots, but like right within Rancho Santa Fe, there's not a ton. There's also a HOA within the Covenant section of Rancho Santa Fe that kind of looks over that section. So if you're doing any remodels, if you're doing any sort of additions, anything like that, you're gonna have to go through the architectural committee and get that approved. They do meet on a regular basis, so the timelines are pretty quick usually, but it is something to be aware of if you're moving out that way.
One last con for Rancho Santa Fe is there are a lot of older homes. So if you're looking for that new construction, big land, or a lot of land with new construction homes, there's not a ton out there. Obviously there's a bunch that have been completely remodeled and everything, but there's a lot of homes from the 70s, 80s out in Rancho Santa Fe. Next on the list of rural communities here in North County, San Diego is probably the most convenient out of the group, and that is Alevinhain. Alevinhain is a colony or district of Encinitas, which is 92024 here in North County. It is a really neat rural community that has kind of a mix of kind of that equestrian feel. There's a couple tract neighborhoods, but they're large tract neighborhoods on 2-acre lots. And it is just kind of a different feel than a lot of the other parts of Encinitas. For the most part, homes are gonna be kind of in that $3 million and up mark in Encinitas if you're looking for detached houses. There are a couple that are in kind of the Rancho Santa Fe Road corridor, which are a little bit on the smaller side and kind of in that 1.7 range kind of starting point. But for the most part, they are going to be in that 3 million plus. There is a community within Livenhain off of Lone Jack Road called Wildflower, and that's where you're going to find kind of the most expensive homes in Livenhain for the most part. There's a couple others kind of spread within, but Wildflower has really big lots, big views, huge houses, and those are kind of in that $5 to $6 million range. So some of the pros, on top of having larger lots where you have a little bit more space, you have a little bit more room to roam on your own property, there's some other great reasons to live in Livenhain. Trails are a huge one. A lot of them are horse trails because it's a big equestrian neighborhood, but they are also great hiking trails, walking trails within Livenhain. These trails can also get you into different parts of North County as well. You can go out into Elfin Forest, Harmony Grove. You can get into like the Village Park area of Encinitas as well. So they are expansive and you can go for miles and miles and miles. Although there's no main HOA for Livenhain, kind of like that Rancho Santa Fe Covenant HOA, there are some random ones within the community. But as a whole, there is a really cool, it's called the Livenhain Meeting Hall, and which is kind of just like a community gathering area. They have Oktoberfest, they have events, they have movie nights, haunted houses. They have a whole ton of really cool events there for all of the Livenhain residents to enjoy. Also kind of locally famous, there is a happy birthday sign, which is right on Rancho Santa Fe Road near that meeting hall where folks can post up birthday announcements on there as well. One of the main cons about Livenhain is traffic on the main road. Rancho Santa Fe is just a one lane in each direction road with a ton of stop signs. So during those high traffic times, there's a long wait to get kind of within the community or get out if you need to go to the grocery store or any shops or anything like that. It can get a little bit backed up. So just to add to that rural feel, there are also some roads that are still unpaved, so dirt roads to get to kind of different little neighborhoods and stuff. There's also some unkept roads which have just deteriorated over the years. And then also one of the cons is just the fact that not a ton of homes come up for sale in the community. A lot of people move out to Livenhain and don't leave. My parents, for example, lived out there for 25 years and are now building another house to live out there for the rest of their lives. So a lot of people, once they're in Livenhain, they tend to stick there. So there's a lot of competition when homes do come on the market.
Next up on the list is a little section of, technically it's Escondido, but right to the east of San Alejo Hills and San Marcos. It's called Elfin Forest. You're not gonna find it like as a city or anything on the map, but it's another beautiful rural community, a little more spread out. The footprint here is probably one of the smallest. It is not a ton of homes. Price points are kind of gonna range in that $2 to $4 million range. You will find some actual lots out there still. So if you did want to build from the ground up, there is that opportunity out there. So continuing with some of the pros of Elfin Forest, like those lots, there's 2 acre minimums out there, so there's no real tiny lots. You're also a super quick shot to infrastructure downtown, the town center of San Alejo Hills, which is a smaller footprint, but you have, you got Albertsons there, you have a few restaurants, you have a few shops, you have all that kind of stuff right there, and it's like 5 minutes away, so it's not too far. And just like the first 2 communities, there are some trails out there. So the Elfin Forest is, well, that's the community we're talking about, but there are also some trails that lead up to a reservoir on the top. It's called the Way Up Trail. So a lot of people cruise out there on the weekends and hit up all those trails. You could also access all the trails in San Alejo and kind of cut back that way. So the trail systems in there are pretty awesome. Not so much horse trails in here. It's more kind of walking, biking, all that kind of stuff, kind of trails, but really great back there. There's also a lot of opportunity, or a lot more, seems like, custom construction. So most of the houses out there are super custom. You're not gonna find like any of these tract neighborhoods out there. And some of the cons of Elfin Forest is actually getting to the school. So if you have kids, there's no like direct routes to the schools. You're either gonna go, like some of the elementaries and stuff are Rancho Santa Fe. Once you get into high school and stuff, you're going to San Diego. So the getting there's no direct routes. There are some cut throughs, some back roads, some, I think is it
Unpaved.
paved now?
No,
it's not
paved now.
It's still not paved. So as you're cruising through, it'll drop you off like in the Livenhain and stuff, but there's no direct way to get there. So you're gonna have to budget some time into actually going to school.
The road that takes you to Rancho Santa Fe is an unpaved road. It is a cut through, but it is a little bit rough. So it is, like Chris mentioned, it just takes you a little extra time to get to those schools.
And even though it is a Escondido address, you're gonna be using most of the infrastructure in either like San Alejo or shooting down to Encinitas. It's probably even closer than shooting back like Harmony Grove into Escondido. So it does live a little bit more like those coastal cities.
Fourth on the list is a community that not a ton of people know about, and that is the Buena Creek area of Vista. This is also kind of the foothills of Vista, which is the dividing lines of those two kind of areas is blurry, but there are a ton of great opportunities for houses in this Buena Creek area. And it's not the most affordable, but it's close to it. And kind of the average price in the Buena Creek area is gonna be right around 1.5, 1.6. And that obviously is bigger homes, bigger lots, and some of these spots have really killer views too. That's one of the big pros of Buena Creek is you get some really pretty mountain views, even a little bit of peekaboo ocean views from some of these spots. Convenience-wise, Buena Creek is a little bit further out from some of the big box stores. It's probably like 10-minute drive, maybe 15-minute drive from some of the spots. Mostly because it's a lot of like small windy roads. There's not like a giant thoroughfare that gets you to these areas. And then it's also about a 15-minute drive to downtown Vista, which is a growing part of this community. It's really killer. There's Sinopolis, there's Urban Pizza, which is one of our favorites. There's a bunch of restaurants, breweries. You got Belch and Beaver with a restaurant over there too. So there are a lot of great spots to check out in downtown Vista. One of the cons about Vista is there are not a ton of sidewalks. When we did a video recently about Vista, I think we pulled up to the one sidewalk we could find. So if you're looking for that kind of community where you can walk on the sidewalks, it's not gonna be this part of Vista. And then also, there's not, like I said, not a ton of thoroughfares, not easy ways to get to places. So like if you wanna get to the Carlsbad Village or downtown Encinitas or any of those spots, it is a little bit further out. This part of Vista too can get a little bit warmer than the communities we already talked about. A lot of the houses out here have air conditioning, so that's not really a worry. Also a ton of pools and stuff too, so it does get a little bit warmer, but there's obviously ways to take care of that.
And the last most affordable community kind of has that rural feel is going to be Bonsall. It's right on the border of Oceanside, so even some of those Oceanside kind of where it borders Bonsall are going to have that same kind of feel. But Bonsall is a smaller footprint place. It's probably the furthest out from like the coast, from like infrastructure, all that kind of stuff. And it's probably like the most truly kind of rural spot. In price points, you're gonna start around that $600,000 range, go all the way up to 4 million. There's actually one on the market for like 10 million. That's kind of like an outlier. And some of those bigger, higher end prices, I think one of them is actually like a succulent farm. So you can actually buy full on farms out in that Bonsall area. But average properties right now, like I said, mid-April, is sitting about 1.4, 1.5. And these are definitely on the bigger size properties, on the bigger size lots. Some of the pros, it is relatively unknown. So if you are searching, a lot of people don't search Bonsall. It's either like Fallbrook or Oceanside. This sits kind of right in the middle of there. So it's kind of like a hidden gem within North County here. And if you did want to become a farmer, this is probably your best bet. Because like I said, there are some actual farms for sale, but a ton of agricultural land out there as well. There's also, once again, with a lot of these communities, there's kind of rolling hills. So there are some killer views from out there. You're gonna be a little bit further from the ocean, but not a big deal because you have some beautiful views out there. And if you look on great schools and anything like that, like their K through 8's really highly rated because it's like a super tiny school system. There's like elementary, a middle, and a high school, and that's kind of it for there. And some of the cons, if you are moving to San Diego for that beach feel, that beach vibe, this doesn't really have it. It's a completely different out there because you are kind of the furthest from the ocean. You can shoot there in probably about 30 minutes, maybe a little faster, shoot down the 76, end up in Oceanside. But if you want that beach town, this is probably not gonna be the spot for you. And then you're also gonna be the furthest of all these communities from like amenities, from all your big box stores and all that kind of stuff. You're gonna travel a little bit further. Like I said, probably the 76 is gonna have the most of that. Up and down the 76 that cuts through Oceanside has a ton of that kind of stuff, but there's nothing like kind of right there. You're gonna be traveling a little bit to get to some of that stuff. If you guys wanna see one of these communities, Rancho Santa Fe, we did a vlog recently where we cruised through, show you all the communities. Be sure to check that out. It's popping up right now. And if you are thinking about moving out here still, hit us up, call, text, email. We got your back. We're moving here to North County, San Diego.